Hey everyone, welcome to a video on our second macroeconomic objective, which is economic growth. So here is our objective. We want a steady and continuous rate of growth in the economy. What is economic growth? Well, that refers to an increase in real GDP. Now we're going to get to what makes it real soon, and we will learn what GDP is, of course, as well. As I said, we don't actually have a target for economic growth, but it's essentially whatever percentage allows the other objectives to be achieved. So whatever percentage of growth allows us to have low and stable inflation and also low unemployment. That's what we're looking for. Okay, here's what gross domestic product is. So when you write this down, I want you to leave some space around it because we're going to annotate it a little bit, right? So write it nice and big and leave some room for annotation. Okay, gross domestic product is the dollar value of all final goods and services produced within a country's borders in 1 year. So there's a little bit to unpack here. Let's have a look. So the value, dollar value of all goods and services produced. So it's the price the good is sold for times the quantity of it sold. So if you sell 5 shoes for $100, 5 pairs of shoes for $100 each, that's $500 that would add to gross domestic product. Final goods, they have to be final goods. So it will not be sold again as part of another good. So we only count the ones that go to consumers. We don't count the ones that go to producers to be sold as part of another good, right? That doesn't count. Otherwise, what would happen is we would count the same production twice. We'll go into that. That's not what we want to do. We want to be accurate about what is being produced in an economy. Produced. It has to be produced. So used goods are not included. So if you sell a car, you sell a car that you have bought previously, that doesn't count towards GDP when you sell it again because nothing has been produced. That's the same car as before. So anything that we sell on marketplace, that sort of thing, it has been sold before. And it also has to be within a country's borders. So imports, stuff we buy from overseas, is not included in GDP. Okay, PPC, we haven't seen one of these for a while. So capital goods, consumer goods. Here, this is an example of economic growth. So an increase in our actual output, so we get more productive efficiency and we get less unemployment. We use more of the resources than we used before. So economic growth. All right, here is an equation for gross domestic product. We're going to be using this understanding a lot. So let's get used to this. C plus I plus G plus X minus M. Okay, so it's made up of consumption spending. So that's all household purchases of final goods and services in a year. So, things we buy just for ourselves, right? Investment. Investment is spending by firms on capital. So when a mining firm builds a railway to get their coal out to the ports, that's investment spending. When a firm redoes their office, that's investment spending. So spending by firms on capital is part of GDP. Government spending. Government buys things as well. So they spend on goods and services. Here, they're spending on the service of police. Here, that is spending on a school. So that is a building. So government spend on lots of things, goods and services. Here's only 2 examples of it there. What it doesn't include are transfer payments. So when the government gives money to people, so if you're unemployed, you get money, right? That is not included because them giving you money is not buying a good and it's not buying a service. So it doesn't count as gross domestic product. Okay, and our net exports, so X minus M. Total value of exports minus imports. Right, so exports, for example, coal. Imports, for example, the technology that we earn. So if we add all of these together, we get our gross domestic product. What isn't included? So intermediate goods. I sort of talked about this before. But if a car maker, let's say, they'll have a supplier who builds, they'll have a bunch of suppliers who build parts of the car for them. So they'll buy, for example, a rearview mirror from the rearview mirror factory, right? When they buy that doesn't count as gross domestic product because it's been used to make a car. When the car gets sold, that will count as gross domestic product. Non-production transactions. So financial transactions. So if you buy shares in a company, yes, you're spending money, but you're not buying a good. A share in a company is not a good. It's not a service, so it doesn't count. And any used goods. We sort of talked about this before. Buy something off Gumtree that someone has owned before. It counted to GDP the first time it was sold. It does not count this time. Non-market activity. So we've got two cracks here. This one is referring to crack, like the illegal drug. So you are buying a good if you are buying a drug, but the government doesn't know about it because the drug dealer isn't reporting their drug sales to the government. They would be foolish. So it doesn't count towards GDP because they don't know about it. And I've included this. This is a plumber. So often tradies will do things called cash jobs. So they'll say, look, I'll fix your sink. You just pay me in cash. No one needs to know about it. They do that so they don't have to pay tax on that income. Therefore, the government doesn't know about it. So it doesn't get included in GDP. And lastly, transfer payments. So anything like Centrelink payments. They don't count to GDP because the government is not buying a good or a service when they pay this money. Okay, there are 3 ways to measure GDP. This is a question that does come up in exams, so we do need to know it. The expenditures approach. So all the spending on final goods and services produced in a given year will add up, will show our GDP. So that's essentially what I've shown you already. There's also the income approach. So all the income that we earn from selling all final goods and services produced in a given year is going to, if we add that all up, it'll be the same as what we have spent, right? It'll equal. And there's also the value added approach. We'll go through this more in class, but I want this in your notes. So it adds up all the value added by all the firms in an economy. So these 3 things, national expenditure equals national income equals national production. That's what it says under my face there. So I want this in your notes. We will go through it a bit more in class. Okay, so this is a little bit more of this. So expenditure approach, if we add up all the consumption, investment, government spending, exports minus imports, we will get our total GDP. At the same time, if we add up all the income that we earn, so all the interest, all the rent, all the wages, all the profit, it will equal that same number. And the value added approach, the way we can show this is the average price level multiplied by the unit of goods produced. That will all come to the same number. So here, the total equals 104, we just add those together. Here, we know it must equal 104, so profit must equal 6 billion. And here, we know the average price level, or we know the total GDP must equal to 104, so therefore the average price level must be 6.5, right? So that's just another way to show that they're equal. We won't need to do these calculations, okay? It's just trying to get the point across. Now, we use the term real GDP. We said economic growth was an increase in real GDP. So real GDP is GDP, but it's adjusted for inflation. So we know that prices increase over time. So if the prices just go up, it doesn't mean we've produced more. The total value of equaling GDP, the total value of all the final goods sold will be more if prices go up but that doesn't mean we have produced more. So what we do is we hold prices constant to work out if we're actually producing more than we have before. So I'll show us an example of that. Yes, here it is. All right, so 2018. This is an economy, all it does is sell motorbikes and cars, right? So they sell, 2018, they sell 10 motorbikes, 15,000 each, 150,000. They sell 10 cars, 20,000 each, 200,000. Nominal GDP is $350,000. Right, the next year, they sell 10 motorbikes, $16,000 each. There's been inflation. 10 cars at $21,000 each. Again, inflation. So total GDP equals $370,000. So the total value of those final goods and services has increased. But is the economy actually producing more than it has before? No, producing 10 motorbikes and 10 cars. It's the same thing. So what we do, we can see what's actually happened by using 2018 prices. So when we measure what's happened in 2019, we say, well, they're 10 motorbikes, so we're keeping that constant at 2018 prices of 15,000. 10 cars, we'll keep that constant, 2018 prices of 20,000. And we'll see that the real GDP is exactly the same. So we adjust for inflation. That's how we get our real GDP. So we'll do things on that in class so that we fully get our heads around it. All right, that is all we have for today. Thank you.